I need to tell you something absolutely critical that has been keeping me awake at night for the past 18 months. It is a secret that weighs heavily on my mind, a burden of knowledge that I can no longer carry in silence. And before we begin this deep dive, I need you to do something essential for me. Comment your city name below and tell me, have you noticed anything truly unusual in the night sky lately? Anything at all that seemed out of place or peculiar? NASA has recently asked us to compile detailed reports from across the globe regarding unexplained aerial phenomena. And what you have seen might be far more significant than you could ever realize. What I'm about to share with you today may fundamentally change the way you see humanity's place in the vast-reaching universe. An object designated 3I Atlas entered our solar system not long ago. At first, we thought it was just another interstellar visitor, much like Oumuamua before it. But I was wrong. We were all completely wrong. And now, sitting here in my private study surrounded by highly classified documents I was never supposed to see, I can tell you that 3I Atlas was not just passing through our cosmic neighborhood. It was performing a function, a very specific, deliberate function that has left some of the brightest minds in astrophysics questioning everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy. My name is Michio Kaku, and I have spent my entire professional career trying to understand the fundamental laws that govern our universe. I have written complex equations that describe the very fabric of space-time itself. I have debated the existence of parallel universes, explored the mathematics of wormholes, and championed string theory as a path to the theory of everything. But nothing in my decades of theoretical physics prepared me for what 3I Atlas revealed when it reached the outer boundary of our solar system. The object was first discovered by the Atlas survey in Hawaii. Initially, its trajectory seemed unremarkable for an interstellar interloper, a hyperbolic orbit that suggested it originated from somewhere far beyond our sun's gravitational influence. The spectroscopic analysis showed it was likely a comet rich in volatiles, streaming a long tail of carbon monoxide and nitrogen as it approached perihelion. The scientific community cataloged it, published a few standard papers, and most of us moved on to other mysteries. But then something happened that was not mentioned in any of those public papers. 3 weeks after 3I Atlas reached its closest approach to the sun and began its long journey back into interstellar space, deep space monitoring stations picked up a startling anomaly, not from the object itself, but from the specific region of space it was moving toward. The Goldstone Deep Space Communications Complex in California detected it first. It was a low-frequency pulse barely distinguishable from cosmic background radiation emanating from a point approximately 200 astronomical units beyond the helipause. The signal lasted for exactly 17 seconds, and then it stopped completely. What troubled the team at Goldstone wasn't just the signal's artificial pattern, a series of prime numbers embedded within harmonic frequencies that simply do not occur naturally in any known astrophysical process. What disturbed them most was the timing. The pulse began at the precise moment 3I Atlas crossed an invisible threshold, a boundary we did not even know existed until that object illuminated it like a tripwire in a dark, cold room. I received a call at 2 in the morning from a colleague at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Her voice was audibly shaking. She told me they had been tracking 3I Atlas with every available instrument. And when it crossed that threshold, something responded. Something that had been waiting out there, watching us perhaps for millennia. "Michio," she said, "it is like the object unlocked a door. I want you to understand something about the universe we live in. Space is not truly empty. Even in the vast gulfs between stars, there exists a medium, the interstellar medium composed of gas, dust, cosmic rays, and magnetic fields. We understand this medium quite well. We have mapped it. We have sent probes through it. But what if I told you that embedded within this medium at the very edge of our solar system, there exists something else entirely? Something that does not interact with electromagnetic radiation in the conventional sense. Something that remains invisible until it is activated. This is what 3I Atlas activated. Within 48 hours of the initial signal, observatories around the world began reporting strange anomalies. The Very Large Array in New Mexico detected geometric patterns in the distribution of high-energy particles at the helipause. The Event Horizon Telescope collaboration, while processing data for black hole observations, discovered interference patterns that should not exist in their baseline measurements. Patterns formed a perfect three-dimensional lattice structure extending around the entire solar system. We were looking at a barrier, an artificial construct so vast and so incomprehensibly advanced that it made our most ambitious space engineering projects look like tiny sandcastles on a cosmic beach. The implications hit me like a freight train. We were not alone. Of course, I think many of us suspected that in a universe containing hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars, intelligence had to have evolved elsewhere. But this was different. This wasn't a distant radio signal from a civilization thousands of light years away. This was a structure surrounding our own solar system, placed there by an intelligence that had been monitoring us, containing us perhaps for as long as humanity has existed. I found myself asking the darkest question a scientist can ask. Are we living in a quarantine zone? Think about what we do when we discover a new virus, a new pathogen, or a species that could disrupt an entire ecosystem. We isolate it, we contain it, we study it from a safe distance. What if an advanced galactic civilization looked at humanity in our early stages of technological development and made the same decision? What if our tendency toward violence, our nuclear weapons, and our inability to overcome tribal differences made us too dangerous to join the galactic community? The data from 3I Atlas suggested something even more unsettling. The object itself was not a natural comet. Oh, it had all the characteristics of one on the surface. The spectroscopic signature matched comet composition perfectly. But when researchers at MIT performed a detailed analysis of its trajectory using improved orbital dynamics models, they found something impossible. The object made micro-corrections to its path. Tiny adjustments, barely detectable, but present nonetheless. Adjustments that kept it on a precise collision course with that invisible boundary. 3I Atlas was a probe, a key, an interstellar messenger sent to interface with the barrier surrounding our solar system. But sent by whom and for what purpose? I spent 3 months analyzing the data with a small, elite group of researchers who had been briefed on the findings. We worked in a secure facility in Virginia, cut off from our normal academic networks, bound by non-disclosure agreements that carried serious legal weight. The atmosphere was tense, charged with an energy I had never experienced before in my career. We were looking at evidence that would fundamentally alter humanity's understanding of its place in the cosmos, and we couldn't tell anyone. During those months, we discovered something extraordinary in the signal patterns. The 17-second pulse was not random. When we analyzed it using advanced cryptographic techniques and mapped it against fundamental physical constants, the speed of light, Planck's constant, the fine structure constant, a message emerged. The message was a warning. I remember the day we decoded it. I was standing in front of a whiteboard covered in equations when the pattern finally resolved. My hands were trembling as I wrote down the translation. The message said, in essence, developmental threshold approaching, quarantine protocols under review, demonstrate unified consciousness or face continued isolation. Unified consciousness. Those two words have haunted me ever since. What does an advanced galactic civilization mean by unified consciousness? Are they asking us to evolve beyond our tribal nature? To think as a species rather than as competing nations and ideologies? Are they waiting for us to develop telepathic abilities, to merge our minds through technology, or to transcend biological limitations entirely? Or is it something we cannot even conceptualize yet, like trying to explain quantum mechanics to a medieval peasant? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the barrier around our solar system might not be a prison. It might be a cocoon, a protective shell that shields the galaxy from us and us from the galaxy until we have matured enough to emerge without causing harm to ourselves or to others. But here is what terrifies me. We might be running out of time. The phrase developmental threshold approaching suggests that we are nearing a critical juncture in our evolution as a species, and the behavior of 3I Atlas implies that this juncture is being monitored, measured, and evaluated. We are being tested, and we do not even know what the test is. Consider the timing. 3I Atlas entered our solar system in 2019, just months before a global pandemic would force humanity to confront its fragility and interconnectedness in unprecedented ways. As I write this, we are watching artificial intelligence evolve at an exponential rate, approaching the kind of intelligence explosion that futurists have warned about for decades. We are editing genes, merging with machines, and launching satellites that wrap our planet in a digital nervous system. We are at an inflection point in human history, teetering between transcendence and extinction. And something out there is watching us decide which path we will take. I have been contacted by others who have seen the data. Physicists, astronomers, intelligence analysts, and even people from organizations whose very existence is highly classified. They all want to know the same thing. What happens if we fail the test? What happens if humanity cannot achieve this unified consciousness, this evolutionary milestone that our cosmic neighbors apparently consider the prerequisite for joining galactic civilization? The answer might already be encoded in our own history. Look at what happened to isolated civilizations on Earth when they made contact with more technologically advanced cultures. Often the encounter was catastrophic for the less advanced group, but sometimes the advanced civilization simply maintained the isolation, kept the boundary in place, and waited. They waited for the isolated group to either develop on their own terms or collapse under the weight of their own limitations. I think we are in that waiting period right now, and 3I Atlas was a status check, a measurement, a way for whoever built that barrier to assess our progress. But there is another possibility that keeps me awake at night, one even more disturbing than quarantine or judgment. What if the barrier is not keeping us in? What if it is keeping something else out? During our analysis, we detected something peculiar in the harmonic frequencies of the original signal. Embedded within the mathematical message was a secondary pattern, almost like an echo or a reflection. When we isolated this pattern and played it through an audio synthesizer just to see if it produced anything recognizable, we heard something that made the entire research team fall silent. It sounded like screaming, thousands of voices overlapping in agony or ecstasy. We could not tell which. The sound lasted only for a fraction of a second in the processed audio, but it was unmistakable. Human voices, or something very much like human voices. One of the researchers, a woman who had worked on SETI projects for 20 years, broke down crying. "They are not protecting the galaxy from us," she said. "They are protecting us from something that already consumed them." I do not know if that interpretation is correct. I hope it is not. But it raises a terrifying question. What if our solar system is a life raft? What if the barrier around us is the last defense of a galaxy that has already been infected, assimilated, or destroyed by something we cannot even imagine? What if humanity's isolation is not a punishment or a test, but an act of mercy, a desperate attempt to preserve one last seed of organic independent consciousness before it is too late? The signal from 3I Atlas stopped after 17 seconds, and the boundary it activated has remained stable but quiet since then. We have sent probes toward the helipause to study the phenomenon more closely. But every time they approach the region where the lattice structure should be detectable, their instruments fail. Not catastrophically, but as a gradual degradation of sensor capability. NASA has officially classified the 3I Atlas findings. The public knows the object existed, knows it was an interstellar comet, but the signal, the boundary, and the message all remain buried under layers of security clearances and bureaucratic obscurity. I understand why. How do you tell humanity that it is living inside a cosmic terrarium without triggering mass panic? How do you explain that our entire history, our wars and achievements, our art and science have all unfolded under the observation of intelligences that regard us the way we might regard bacteria in a petri dish? But I also think we deserve to know, we deserve to understand that the universe is not the empty, indifferent void we once imagined. It is crowded, it is alive, it is aware, and it has been watching us all along. Since the signal, I have noticed something changing in the way I perceive reality. It is subtle but profound. When I look up at the night sky now, I do not see the same universe I spent decades studying. I see a boundary, an invisible wall at the edge of our solar system, humming with technologies and intentions we can barely fathom. I see humanity enclosed, observed, and evaluated, a civilization in a glass house trying desperately to prove it is worthy of opening the front door. And I see the test we are facing. It is not hidden in some distant future or abstract philosophy. It is happening right now in every choice we make as a species. Every time we choose cooperation over conflict, unity over division, long-term survival over short-term gain, we move closer to whatever threshold our cosmic neighbors have set for us. Every time we fail, every time we succumb to the worst aspects of our nature, we provide evidence that we are not ready. We provide proof that the barrier should remain in place for another 1,000 years or another million. I have spent my career trying to unify the forces of nature, to find the single equation that describes all physical reality. But 3i Atlas has taught me that the real unification we need to achieve is not written in mathematics. It is written in consciousness, in the collective awakening of a species that must learn to think as one or risk remaining forever isolated from the cosmic community that surrounds us. The strange thing is, I believe we can do it despite everything, despite our history of violence, our tribal instincts, and our seemingly intractable divisions. I believe humanity has the capacity to evolve beyond its limitations. We have done it before on smaller scales. We have built civilizations, created art and music that transcends language and culture, and developed technologies that let us see to the edge of the observable universe. We have proven that consciousness can expand, that intelligence can grow, and that we are capable of more than mere survival. But we need to do it faster. The developmental threshold is approaching. And I do not think we have generations to figure this out. We have decades, maybe less. I've been asked what ordinary people can do with this information. How does knowing about 3i Atlas and the barrier change anything in our daily lives? And my answer is this: every act of consciousness expansion matters. Every moment of genuine connection with another human being, every time you choose empathy over indifference, every instance of cooperation across boundaries, these are the signals we are sending to whatever intelligence is monitoring us from beyond that invisible wall. We are not powerless. We are not just subjects of an experiment or prisoners in a quarantine. We are participants in our own evolution. And the choices we make ripple outward, influencing the collective field of human consciousness in ways we are only beginning to understand. There's been additional activity recently that has not been made public yet. 3 months ago, another interstellar object was detected on an approach trajectory to our solar system. It is smaller than 3i Atlas, but its path is eerily similar. When it reaches the boundary, we will be watching. We will be analyzing every signal, every pattern, every hint about what comes next in this cosmic drama we have found ourselves at the center of. I think about consciousness a lot these days, not just as an emergent property of neural networks or a quantum phenomenon in microtubules, but as something fundamental to the universe itself. What if consciousness is the universe's way of knowing itself? What if the evolution of intelligent life, the development of beings capable of understanding mathematics and physics, is the entire point of the cosmic story? And what if the test we are facing is whether we can evolve our consciousness beyond individual survival to encompass the survival and flourishing of all consciousness everywhere? These are the questions that keep me awake at night. These are the implications of 3i Atlas that go far beyond the physics of interstellar objects or the engineering of cosmic barriers. We are living through the most important moment in human history, and most people do not even know it. They go about their lives unaware that above their heads, at the edge of our solar system, an invisible boundary marks the difference between a species in isolation and a species ready to join the galaxy. They do not know that their thoughts, their choices, and their consciousness contribute to the collective signal that is being evaluated by intelligences we cannot see or comprehend. But now you know, and knowing changes things. It has to. I am not asking you to believe everything I have told you immediately. I am a scientist, and I understand the need for skepticism, for evidence, and for reproducible results. But I am asking you to consider the possibility that we are not alone, that we never have been, and that the greatest challenge facing humanity is not climate change or nuclear war. The greatest challenge is becoming the kind of species that deserves to survive, that earns its place in a universe teeming with intelligence and purpose. 3i Atlas opened something that day in 2019, a door, a window, a crack in the cosmic fence that surrounds us. For 17 seconds, we glimpsed what lies beyond, and the message was clear: you are not ready, but you could be. As I continue analyzing the data, working with colleagues around the world who have dedicated themselves to understanding this phenomenon, I feel a strange mixture of fear and hope. Fear because the implications are staggering, because we might fail, because the barrier might never come down in our lifetimes or our children's lifetimes. But hope because at least we know now. We know there is something to strive for, some higher level of consciousness and civilization that is possible, that has been achieved by others before us. We know we are not the end of the story. We are just one chapter in a much longer book. And the next chapter depends on what we do right now in this critical moment of human history. Follow this channel as we continue decoding the universe's final warnings, because I believe more signals are coming, more probes, more messages, and each one will bring us closer to understanding not just what is out there beyond the barrier, but what we need to become to join it. The question I leave you with tonight is this: if the boundary came down tomorrow, if we were suddenly exposed to a galaxy full of advanced civilizations with technologies and philosophies beyond our comprehension, would humanity be ready? Would we greet our cosmic neighbors as equals? Or would we revert to the tribal fears and violent instincts that have plagued our species for millennia? Would we even recognize consciousness so different from our own? And if the answer is no, if we are not ready, what are you willing to do to change that? Comment below and tell me your thoughts.